So we have completed the regulation of the kidney and function in the last class. And now we are moving towards the mixturation process. What is mixturation? Let us see here. Urine formed by the nephrons is ultimately carried towards the urinary bladder. Whatever we said over in the Bowman's capsule, after the filtration, that we just made some calculations like 180 liters per day, that glomerular filtration rate is going to be 180 liters per day, 125 milliliter per minute. So this particular the glomerular filtrate or primary urine, as long as it is passing through the nephron, we said that 99% of these are going to be absorbed. The remaining 1% we are carrying towards the urinary bladder. What we said now, urine formed by the nephron ultimately carried to the urinary bladder. The sequence which we made earlier. Okay, so then whenever this particular, let's go once again, initial collecting duct, straight collecting duct, ducts of Bellini, and after that it will go to the calyces and then pelvis, then ureter. Finally, it reaches to the urinary bladder. Okay, so when it reaches to the urinary bladder, imagine urinary bladder is filled with urine. The large amount of urine is filled in the urinary bladder. So that information is going to be, whenever urinary bladder is getting filled over, that voluntary signals will be given by the urinary bladder. Stretch receptors are present here in the urinary bladder. They are sending, here you can see the wall is having some stretch receptors. So these particular stretch receptors are providing information to the urinary bladder. Urinary bladder stretch receptors are providing voluntary signals to the central nervous system. Okay, central nervous system is received the signals. The signal initiated by the stretching of urinary bladder. When urinary bladder is filled, bladder is getting stretched over, and that information will go to the central nervous system, and in response the stretch receptors on the walls of the urinary bladder send signals to the central nervous system. The central nervous system will respond, that passes the motor information. That means here impulses towards the urinary bladder for the contraction of the smooth muscles of the urinary bladder. Okay, so no need to confuse here. Just simply we can say, when urinary bladder is filled with urine, the stretch receptors present in the urinary bladder are information they are sending to the voluntary signal, sending to the central nervous system. The central nervous system will respond, will provide the information to the smooth muscles for what? For contraction, contraction of the smooth muscles of the bladder, and simultaneous relaxation of the urethral sphincter. We are talking about this urethral sphincter, the opening of urinary bladder, urethral sphincter, simultaneous relaxations of the urinary, the sphincter, urethral sphincter we use it to say, causing the release of urine. We call it as elimination of urine from the urinary bladder is called as mixturation. What do you say the process as? Mixturation, elimination of the urine from the urinary bladder. Approximately how much urine going to be eliminated over? We can calculate here like this: 180 liters, 99% approximately absorbed. That means here 1 to 1.5 liters of the urine is going to be eliminated for a human being in a day. That and generalized information here, that here. So this is all about the mixturation. Simply mixturation means elimination of the urine from urinary bladder. The procedure we said it now. Elimination of the urine from urinary bladder is called as mixturation process. So how will it happen, sir? That we are talking about. Whenever the bladder is filled over, stretch receptors will provide the information to the CNS. In turn, the motor impulses will stimulate the smooth muscles and makes the opening of the urethral sphincter. Okay. So then let's talk about the urine here. When we discuss about the urine, what the urine contains. The urine formed here is light yellow in color. The characteristic features, the urine is light yellow in color. Urine is light yellow in color. Okay. Then slightly acidic. This is going to be question here. That from this particular area, this is the question. Slightly acidic. That means here pH is going to be 6.0. Okay, so slavic acid we can say here. Okay, and it has a characteristic odor. It has some urea. That's why we can say that characteristic odor can be expected here. The smell will get here. That the foul smell or urea we can say here. So an average 25 to 30 grams of urea is going to be excreted per day. 25 to, this is going to be the question here. 25 to 30 grams of urea per day, a normal human being is going to eliminate. Okay. So various other conditions also. That means if it is a diabetic patient, we can say sugar is added here. Sugar can be eliminated. Or a person is taking medicines, that particular detoxified medicines are also going to be eliminated in the form of urine, that into along with the urine. So that's why we can say here various diseases, various symptoms can be estimated by examining the urine. Analysis of the urine helps in clinical diagnosis. So clinical diagnostic importance we have, that you might know that doctor for various kinds of diseases, he will ask the test of urine sample test. So that we can say here many metabolic disorders are also related to this particular urine. Then malfunctioning of the kidney also we can understand by the testing, diagnosing or analyzing the urine. Okay. For example, we have an example in NCERT, that glycosuria. This is going to be the question. Glycosuria. What is glycosuria? Presence of glucose. Presence of glucose is not the normal condition. In a person's urine sample, if glucose is noticed over, we can predict the person is going to be a diabetic patient, particularly diabetes mellitus, we use it to say here, diabetes mellitus. Okay. Then in the diabetes mellitus case, along with this particular glycosuria, the patient can be expected to be have another feature, that is ketonuria, the presence of ketone bodies. Presence of ketone bodies, we can say ketonuria. Okay, so these two conditions, presence of ketone bodies, presence of glucose, we can confirm the patient is having, person is having diabetes mellitus. So this is a story. Here you need to remember the pH and this particular 25 to 30 grams of urea, the person is eliminating. This you have to remember. These two things are going to convert as a question. We are going to get the details of diabetes mellitus in the coming classes in endocrinology, no doubt, that we'll discuss there in detail. Then this is all about mixturation process. Now let us see the role of other excretory organs. Not only the kidney, metabolic wastes which are formed in the various other food materials that we are going to say here, along with the kidney, that kidney is a major, we discussed it now. Then along with the kidney, lungs. Can anyone say here how the lungs are going to be excretory organ? Liver.
Carbon dioxide.
Very good. Carbon dioxide. Lungs, liver, skin also helps in the elimination of the excretory wastes. In that, the major one is going to be the lungs here. That we discussed about the carbohydrate metabolism. When we take carbohydrates in the body, we digest in the form of amylase, maltase, sucrase, lactase. Enzymes we discussed in digestion chapter. Amylase, maltase, sucrase, lactase. We digest in the form of some glucose, fructose and galactose. After the digestion, we are breaking this particular glucose with the help of oxygen. When you break, we get an excretory waste. We call it as metabolic waste. Carbon dioxide, metabolic waste. We get energy, okay, we get energy, but along with the energy, we get a metabolic waste called carbon dioxide. This whole we can say carbohydrate metabolism. And we know that carbon dioxide is going to be the excretory waste material eliminated through the lungs. Nearly 200 ml calculation is important. 200 ml, approximately 200 ml per minute. The carbon dioxide we are going to eliminate. Then along with that, we know that some water is also going over. That means along with in the expiration process, some water vapor also will go. So that means adequate quantity of water also we are losing from our expiration process. Okay. So thing to remember in the lungs, lungs are also excretory organ in what context? Elimination of metabolic waste called carbon dioxide. We can say here. So this is the story of lungs. Okay. Next, what is the other? We said number 2, liver. We know the liver is the largest gland in our body, and liver secrete bile containing substances called bilirubin and biliverdin. What is this bilirubin and biliverdin? We already said about this particular. RBC after the death, that completion of the lifespan, 120 days, the RBC reaches to the graveyard of RBC. Who is the graveyard of RBC? Yeah, very good. Spleen, not liver, spleen. Then when it reaches to the spleen, spleen will dissociate the RBC hemoglobin into heme and globin. And globin will be sent for recycling. We can use this back again in the RBC production. For recycling, we'll send it to the bone marrow. And what about the heme? Heme is a toxic waste material. We are sending heme to the liver. Liver convert the heme into bilirubin and biliverdin. That means here bilirubin and biliverdin, simply we can say detoxified forms of heme. That heme is detoxified into bilirubin and biliverdin. We know this actually, that we discussed in the liver also. So what is this? This is an excretory waste material. Okay. Along with that, cholesterol is also going to be eliminated, excess cholesterol which is formed in the body by liver. And degraded steroid hormones. Hormones you have to remember, we'll get that in endocrinology also. Excess hormones can't be stored in the body. That way degrade. Excess if it is, we are going to degrade. Okay, then degraded steroid hormones, vitamins, and the various kinds of drugs, all they are going to be detoxified by liver. Simply, this is the role of liver. We can say here, formation of bilirubin, biliverdin, cholesterol elimination, and degraded steroid hormones, vitamins, and drugs. These are also that various. These are all going to be the various kinds of substances here. Most of these substances are ultimately passed out along with the digestive waste. Here, what is the way? Most of these are eliminating through the digestive waste. Do we have a way here from the liver to alimentary canal? Eliminated along with the digestive waste. Do we have a way here from the liver? Is there any connection with the alimentary canal? I want the duct which is connected to the yeah, expected actually. That's why I'm asking. You people may say hepatic portal vein. No. So that confusion can come. Okay, no matter. Hepatopancreatic duct, which opens into the duodenum, which is guarded by the sphincter of Oddi. The vein is different. Vein is carrying some different, that not metabolic wastes. We have a road here. We have a road from liver to gut into the duodenum. Did you remember that? That we said hepatopancreatic duct opens into the duodenum, which is guarded by sphincter of Oddi. In that way, that going through the fecal matter. Digestive waste is nothing but fecal matter. We can use this word, fecal matter. That which is eliminating out through the anus. So this is a liver story. Next, what is the another thing we said over? Skin. Skin means we have to talk about sweat glands. Skin, sweat glands and sebaceous glands. First of all, let us discuss about the sweat gland. Straight away, can I ask you that the function of sweat gland? What is the function of sweat gland? Why we sweat? Why we sweat? To know this, we need to know that we are homeothermic animals. Means here, we maintain our body temperature constant always, 37 degrees centigrade. Our body temperature always going to be maintained constant. We maintain our body temperature constant. How, sir? Outside, if the temperature is 45, what is our body temperature? 37 only. We don't, that our body temperature is going to be increased. It's not going to be increased over. How it happens? How it happen? We sweat to cool our body temperature. So now that's what I am asking here. What is the use of sweat? Sweat glands secrete sweat. What is the use? Here you have to say that. What is the use? To maintain body temperature constant. Yeah, homeothermic body temperature. Okay, when temperature is cools down outside, we shiver. Okay, but here we are talking about sweat. That's why I'm just that when outside temperature is increased over, to cool our body, we sweat. Okay, so that's why. That means sweat is a compulsory phenomena when outside temperature increases. Okay, sweat glands produced by the sweat glands are going to produce a sweat is a watery fluid. The motto is clear, that is to cool our body temperature. A watery fluid is going to be eliminated through the sweat here. Then what it contains, that important here, why we are putting heading, there you can understand. That it has some sodium chloride and it also has some small amounts of urea. Some small amounts of urea are also going to be eliminated here. That is the reason along with the urea we'll have lactic acid also, little amount of lactic acid also can be expected over. Okay, watery fluid and sodium chloride, small amounts of urea, that lactic acid. You might have know the taste of sweat, salty. Why? Sodium chloride. You might know that the sweat gives some foul smell. Why, sir? Because it contains urea. Yeah, that is the reason why it can have some foul smell. We can say actually the primary function of the sweat is not eliminating the excretory wastes here. Primary function of sweat is to facilitate cooling effect of our body surface. But along with that, it also helps in the removal of some of the wastes which we are talking about, sodium chloride, small amount of urea and lactic acid. So that is about sweat, and let's talk about sebaceous glands. Along with the sweat glands in the skin, we'll find some sebaceous glands also. Sebaceous gland, what they do? Sebaceous gland. Sebaceous glands are going to eliminate the certain substances called sterols, hydrocarbons. Sebum we can say here. Secretion of the sebaceous gland we call sebum. Sebum contain some sterols and various kinds of hydrocarbons can be expected here. And waxes are seen over, waxes, they're all going to be eliminated through the sebum. These are also excretory wastes we can see here. Some sterols, hydrocarbon, waxes that are going to eliminate it through the sebum. Actual function of the sebaceous gland, it is an oily covering. Actually, sebum is an oily covering on the skin. Okay, that means here which lubricates our skin, oily covering of the skin. So along with that sebum, that some elimination we are expecting here, we are observing here. Okay, so the very interesting thing here that we just didn't mention actually, that we said lungs, we said liver, and we said skin, but very interestingly, saliva is also going to have some excretory wastes. Saliva, actually not considerable amount. If it is considerable amount, we may feel the taste even, but saliva also contain very, very little amount of nitrogenous wastes, small amounts of urea, small amounts, very small amount, considerable amount, that's why we can't taste it. Small amounts of nitrogenous wastes. Okay, so we are not considering it as an excretory organ, but just we are talking about this. That's all. So this is the role of other excretory organs. Any doubt? Yes, yes. Hmm. No, not like that. Eyes don't have any excretory wastes. Eye is a sensitive organ. Eye having lacrimal glands, the lacrimal glands of the eye is having an enzyme called lysozyme, which can kill the bacteria. We don't have any excretory wastes there. That you might expect sodium chloride there, little amount. You might have tasted over salty, but that's not the motto here. Eye is not an excretory organ. Eye is a sensitive. In case if you see the bile in our body, the reflection you can see in the eye. That means instead of eliminating the bile, okay, we'll discuss that in the jaundice coming now. We have to put the heading disorders of the excretory system. Let us discuss about the disorders of the excretory system. There you can see the jaundice, but no elimination of any excretory wastes from this particular eye. Okay, so let's talk about disorders of the excretory system. Okay, one after another. Let us see one after another. Number one, uremia. Uremia. The malfunctioning of the kidneys can lead to the accumulation of the urea in the blood. This is a very, very important statement. We'll get like that only. Accumulation of urea in the blood. So when does the urea in the blood going to be accumulated over? So simple, by the malfunctioning of kidney. If the kidney is not working, we can say here, by the malfunctioning of the kidney, we can say that urea is not eliminating. If it is urea is not eliminating, simply we can say automatically that urea is going to be accumulated over. So what happens in that particular patient where kidney is not working? Kidney is not working. So what to do, sir? So we have to do hemodialysis. We'll discuss about the hemodialysis. How do we do in the case if the person's two kidneys are not working? So what is going to happen, that we'll discuss. But this, you just remember the heading, and then after I'll show you how do we that eliminate. How do hemodialysis solution? I'm writing here. Solution for this patient is hemodialysis, not permanent solution, but at least solution. So process of hemodialysis, even we have to see here. We'll discuss, but let me complete all the disorders first, then after we'll go for. Okay, that hemodialysis is a solution, but permanent solution is going to be permanent solution. Kidneys are not working. What can be kidney transplantation? Very good. Permanent solution is going to be the kidney transplantation, but till the person get the kidney, we need to do hemodialysis. Okay, let me complete the disorders, then after we'll discuss about this. Renal failure. What is the meaning of renal failure? Same again, that we can say renal failure or acute renal failure, that we can say nothing but malfunctioning of the kidney. Kidney is not working. Okay, suddenly kidney stopped working. So that definitely is going to be solution for them is going to be kidney transplantation. Okay, acute and chronic. We have two actually, kidney transplantation. Acute renal failure, immediately person required kidney transplantation. But not in all the time here. Not all the times the kidney slowly start degenerating. Activity of the kidney is going to be reduced over based on the intensity of the urea in the blood. We can understand kidney is going. Okay, what is acute, sir? The suddenly kidney stops working. In both cases, yeah, acute and chronic, we can say. Acute means immediately the failure of the kidney. So in those cases, as early as possible, we need to go for kidney transplantation. A functioning kidney need to be transplanted over. That is very important. Okay, now Let's go with the bigger one, renal calculi. Why I'm saying bigger one? For examination point of view and for people's point of view. Might have heard over the four famous disease related to the kidney. What is this? Yeah, stone. Formation of stone or any insoluble mass. So let me ask you a question here. If a person eating the food material and along with that he also eats some stones, how far the possibility is there for renal calculi in that person? Percentage of chances? 90%, 80%, you can use anything. No, you can estimate. Okay, percentage, whether he get salt, particular stone in the kidney or not. Possibility is there or not? Insoluble mass of crystallized salts. Oxalates. Oxalate nothing but stone, we can say here. Stone or insoluble mass of crystallized salt. So just I am testing you. Rava, how? 100 grams of food లో ఆయన చెప్పాడు అనమాట 20 grams of stones ఉండాల్సిందే నా ఫుడ్ లో అని ఆయనకి ఇష్టం ఒక పర్సన్ ఏ అనే పర్సన్ సో ఎప్పుడు వచ్చేస్తుంది ఈయనకి కిడ్నీ రెనల్ క్యాలిక్యులై కిడ్నీ స్టోన్స్ Gayatri, how can you say అలా ఏం రావని ఎలా చెప్పగలవు అంటే దట్ ఆన్ వాట్ బేసిస్ యు ఆర్ సేయింగ్ దిస్ అయ్యో తింటున్నాడు నేనే చెప్పాను కదా మా ఇంటెన్ కాల్ ఉన్నాడు ఈయన ఎప్పుడు వస్తుందని నేను కూడా చూస్తున్నా స్టమక్ డైజెస్ట్ చేయలేదు ఓకే పెద్ద పెద్ద రాళ్ళు 2 mm stones 4 mm stones ఈజ్ ఈటింగ్ 10 mm stones మింగాడయ్యా నీకేంటి మింగేశాడు ఇప్పుడు చాప్టర్ నెంబర్ 16 డైజెషన్ అబ్జార్ప్షన్ అయిపోయింది బ్రీతింగ్ అండ్ ఎక్స్చేంజ్ అయిపోయింది బాడీ ఫ్లూయిడ్ సర్క్యులేషన్ అయిపోయింది ఎక్స్క్రెటరీ ప్రొడక్ట్స్ ఎండ్లో ఉన్నాం మనం ఓకే ఇక్కడ ఇలా అడుగుతున్నాడంటే ఎందుకు అడుగుతున్నాడో ఆలోచించవచ్చుగా నార్మల్ గా ఒక ఎంపీసీ స్టూడెంట్ ఎలా రియాక్ట్ అవుతాడో అలాగే అవుతున్నారు అలా ఎలా తింటారు అది ఒక నార్మల్ ఇంటర్మీడియట్ యూఆర్ నాట్ నార్మల్ యూఆర్ హాఫ్ డాక్టర్స్ హాఫ్ ఫిజియాలజీ కంప్లీట్ అయింది కదా eating stones in the food material not at all related to the kidney stones sir అని చెప్పాలి యాక్చువల్ గా if you people apply your knowledge స్టమక్ లో డైజెస్ట్ కాలేదండి ఇంటెస్టైన్ డైజెస్ట్ కాలేదు స్టోన్ will be eliminated through the fecal matter కదా how it is related to the kidney isn't it or not end beginning ఏంటండి ఫుడ్ కి మౌత్ ఎండ్ ఏంటి anus then ఇక్కడ కిడ్నీకి రిలేషన్ ఏముందండి హౌ ఇట్ ఈస్ రిలేటెడ్ టు ద కిడ్నీ ఇఫ్ ఈ ఈట్ 100 grams కాదు 100 grams ఫుడ్ కి 200 grams స్టోన్స్ తిన్నాడు అరగలేదు వచ్చేస్తాయి బయటికి నాట్ త్రూ ద కిడ్నీ అట్లీస్ట్ త్రూ ద యానస్ ఇన్ ద ఫార్మ్ ఆఫ్ ఫికల్ మ్యాటర్ అవునా సో అంటే యూ పీపుల్ నీడ్ టు అండర్స్టాండ్ ది స్టోన్స్ ఆర్ నాట్ ఫర్ దట్ okay for example let's take tomato let's take spinach if a person like these two materials and he eats only these two only regularly in the diet only these two he likes in the large quantities we just mentioned here oxalates so that excess oxalates the present in the ureter that these particular excess oxalates are going to be accumulated over in the kidney or in the ureters or in the urinary bladder these oxalates are going to be accumulated over insoluble mass of crystallized salts, we are going to say it as a stone. Okay, not the person eating stones. That person's eating food, that means diet is also going to, diet is only going to make this particular formation of stones in the kidney. And he is taking this, alone taking this won't get kidney stones. That not drinking water. If the person is not drinking water for a long period of time, that means just 100 ml, 200 ml only drinking for a long period of time. He is not drinking water. There is a possibility. That means not a day here. Today, you are not drinking water. You stop drinking. Instead of 2 to 3 liters, you are drinking only 1 liter. Today itself won't come over. That we are not saying like that. Yeah, it's a chronic. If you don't drink water for a long period of time, if you don't drink water for a long period of time, that leads to the, and eat this kind of food habits are going to make such kind of differences. Okay, so we are ending up with a large disorder here. That one more glomerulonephritis, we can say here. This is also going to be a neat question. Glomerulonephritis. Glomerulonephritis. It's there in the name, isn't it? Inflammation in the, yeah, that's all. Inflammation in the glomerulus. We can say glomerulonephritis. Inflammation in the glomerulus. We can say glomerulonephritis. Okay, so that's it. All the disorders. Let's take a look back again. Let's take a look. We just said now that uremia, accumulation of the urea in the blood, then solution, which we are going to discuss now, acute renal failure. In these two cases, that they end up with malfunctioning of kidney, and solution should be the kidney transplantation. Mean period of time that person should done, that if patient to be done by hemodialysis is required over for the patient for the accumulation of urea, for the accumulation of urea. Next, stones in the kidney, we call renal caliculi, inflammation of the glomerulus. We say glomerulonephritis. Glomerulonephritis. Okay. Now, let's talk about hemodialysis. Hemodialysis. What happens in those cases if the kidney is not functioning? That means renal artery enters in the kidney by taking what? To eliminate urea, renal artery enters in the kidney. Okay, renal vein who is returning from the kidney should not have urea, that we discussed earlier, isn't it? Yeah, renal artery is coming from heart. Heart, left ventricle, left systemic aorta, dorsal aorta, renal artery, we said now. Then enters into the kidney, but no any work, that all people are in leave now, not functioning. So what happens here? Renal vein carries the urea, the same amount, how whatever the renal artery is having. Where this renal vein is going? Inferior vena cava, right atria, right? Yeah, going to the heart. That's what you require. So that automatically, that accumulation of the urea, we can say here. So that means kidney is not working, means urea going to be accumulated in the blood of human being. We can say that solution is going to be the hemodialysis. Solution is going to be the hemodialysis. Okay. So then what we do in hemodialysis, here we are not going for the entire process, but a basic issue we are discussing here, the basic issue we are going to discuss about the hemodialysis process. Let's talk about it. Just be careful, just focus here in the particular hemodialysis topic. After this, I'll show you the video also on this particular. So first of all, what we are doing here, blood is drained from, drain means we are bringing out, drained from a convenient artery. Means here whichever available from the hand generally will take a convenient artery. Blood is drained from a convenient artery and is pumped into a dialyzing fluid. Dialyzing fluid for what? For filtration of the excess nitrogenous wastes which are present in the blood. Okay. So dialyzing fluid. Okay. So whenever you drain the blood out, there is a possibility of clotting of the blood. That's why we need to add heparin, anticoagulant material. Heparin need to be added over. Add heparin to prevent, because we are bringing blood out towards the dialyzing fluid. So what a dialyzing fluid contains? Where does that dialyzing unit? Let's talk about the dialyzing unit. Dialyzing unit contain. These are all going to be the questions here. So just listen carefully. Dialyzing unit. A coiled cellophane dialyzing unit having a coiled cellophane tube which is surrounded by dialyzing fluid. Means here, if it is dialyzing fluid, if it is the dialyzing fluid, there it contains a coiled cellophane tube. Now I am adding that cellophane tubes which are passing through the dialyzing fluid. Okay, then just focus here. Definitely you'll understand that particular. Then after that, passing through this, that means here from the patient artery, after adding heparin, we are bringing out the blood and we are connecting that particular to the tube, cellophane tubes, coiled cellophane tube. I said coiled, I didn't show here. This is coiled like this. That means like this. That is to increase the surface area. That's all. I drawn straight tube for your understanding. Okay, so the porous cellophane membrane of the tube allow the passage of molecule. You just remember this word. Everything is here only. Porous cellophane membrane, that we said coiled cellophane tube having porous cellophane membrane, the tube which have of the tube allows the passage of molecules. That you have to remember. Allows the passage of molecules. Okay, sir. Then what? Then what? Need to analyze this dialyzing fluid. Means here everything is here only. Dialyzing fluid. Sir, what is dialyzing fluid? And I think my students will answer this. Dialyzing fluid should contain more urea or less urea? Okay, I have to give three options then. More urea, less urea, no urea. I do remember you once again, the beggar's plate we discussed earlier in the last class even. If you want money, how your plate should be? Yeah, huh? How your plate should be? Empty. That we use this in so many areas from the heart when you are moving with pulmonary artery. The capillaries are moving. If you want oxygen from the lungs, if you want oxygen, what you are expecting here, you should have more oxygen or less oxygen? No, I'm asking about the capillaries. Capillaries is having less oxygen or more oxygen? Yeah, if they have more oxygen, do they attract oxygen? That's all. That's also simple. That's also simple. Means here we can say if we have more oxygen, you don't get. That's why what they are maintaining low oxygen. That's why they get more oxygen. Concentration. Yeah, anything the same. For example, that putting 1,000 rupees in your pocket showing that 1,000 rupees. If you ask 500 to your friend, will he give? Go with empty pocket. He may give. Got my point here? Yeah. So now I think you can answer based on that particular. Dialyzing fluid should not have urea. Do you accept? Here, this is the patient blood which is going. He is having more urea. That's the problem actually that we just discussed about. That's the problem actually. What's the problem? His kidney is not working. That's why he got more urea. So that's why his blood is flowing through the cellophane membrane. And what we said, porous cellophane membrane of the tube allows the passage of molecules, isn't it? So that means if in his blood, if large amount of urea is there, I am asking you, your blood should have less, your fluid, dialyzing fluid, should have more urea or less urea? Yeah, no urea. And remaining, I am asking here, glucose means glucose, etc. Just I am talking about the glucose, the etc. So glucose, let's take glucose. Okay. So what about the composition of the glucose in the dialyzing fluid? Glucose composition. I will give three options. This is the patient's blood, equals the patient blood, more than the patient blood, less than the patient's blood. Equal. Why? That's it. Super. Very good. That is going to be questions for you. It's in the form of statement. That's why I'm not teaching. I'm asking. That means you should think if amount of required substances here, if the same, there is no any exchange, isn't it or not? If the both are same, there is no matter of exchange. That's what we are talking about. If both are same, there is no matter of exchange. So that's what we are talking about. So that means all the substances you require, means all the substances, if you want to, whatever you want to extract from the patient's blood, that substances the dialyzing fluid should not have. And the substances which you don't want to move in between, they should be maintained in what amounts? Yeah, if you that those substance, that means that's why we have a statement in the particular textbook in our NCERT. Dialyzing fluid composition is almost equal to the blood composition. Composition of the dialyzing fluid is almost equal to the blood composition, except urea. Yeah, because it has more urea and it has no urea. That's it. That's the reason. Okay. So now let me show you the total scenario. What we do. First of all, from the convenient place, we'll take the blade. Oh my God. From the convenient place, we'll take from the artery, we'll take the blade. And after that, by adding heparin, what we do here by adding heparin, we are sending into the dialyzing fluid. Dialyzing fluid. I am simplifying here. Dialyzing fluid containing what? Dialyzing fluid containing coiled cellophane porous membranes like this. Okay, like this. And we have a used dialyzing fluid also. If this is the used dialyzing fluid, what is the difference between the fresh dialyzing fluid and used dialyzing fluid? Can you answer for that? Urea content is more in used dialyzing. Yeah, that's it. That's all. That I understand. You got everything here. So that's it. Okay, this is the dialyzing fluid. So what we want, that you should not have. What you don't want, that you should maintain the equal amount. That's all. This is what happening. So just understand what is going to happen. The blood is taken and passing through this particular, and dialyzing fluid will taken. My God, actually I connected with this particular. We should remove this. Then after that we have to take this back again. Blood is going. So blood is taken back again to the person through the vein. We are injecting this back again. Okay, so simply we can say this is kidney. Okay, this is the kidney. So continuously we have to remove this dialyzing fluid. Dialyzing fluid need to be removed over. That after that used dialyzing fluid definitely contain urea. So we have a mechanism. I'm not drawing here the complete dialyzing apparatus and machine, just for our understanding that from the artery we'll bring out, from the artery we are bringing the blood out, adding heparin, and then after that, when it is passing through that, urea will be removed from when it's passing through the dialyzing fluid, and blood is back again to the vein. Okay, blood is back again to the that vein by removing heparin. That's it. Any doubts here? Hmm. That I'll show you. All that remaining doubts will go for. I'll show you a video and all that remaining. But concept and mechanism question, that whether you got this or not, concept came or not. That's all. That's all. That means you need to get the concept. Then after, the remaining small doubts will be clear.